right, y'all. My son was actually born 2 days ago, and I just wanted to say real quickly, thank y'all for all the prayers, the love, and the support. Various different platforms and things like that, wishing us well, and that stuff means the world to me. Everybody's happy and healthy, and we are just feeling blessed. So, meant to mention, I didn't mention in the stream. So the stream ended the Maxx Crosby discussion that we had on the live show 2 days ago. It ended. 3 minutes later, I walked inside. My wife looks at me. She's doubled over in contractions, and she says, "It's showtime." So I hadn't had a chance to readdress it since then, but now I just wanted to make clear, because I know it's a major concern for a lot of you. Maxx Crosby does not mean no George Pickens. Two different reasons why. The first is the franchise tag. Don't forget about that. That's still in play here. Not just one, but potentially two. Now, also want to admit and preface before we even have the salary or the franchise tag talk, the salary cap, as we know, you're going to hear me mention it in this portion here too. It's what we talk about all the time on this platform. And thank you for hitting the like button, by the way, is the salary cap hell is a myth. Okay. So even if it wasn't the franchise tag in the Cowboys' back pocket with George Pickens, they could still make George plus Max work, no matter what. So just wanted to make that clear. All right. Back to your regular scheduled programming. And thank you guys again for the love, for the support, and for the continued growth of this channel. Because people like you, the sports below the surface truth for the true fan, that's what this is all about here. Let's keep growing. Try to get to 10K before the end of the season. I know we can do it. All right. Here we go.
Approximately. I think it was 47 was the final number. And about the same percentage of blitz packages. Those two, in some regards, are synonymous. Why? Because when you play man coverage, there's less zones to worry about because there's more zones than there are receivers. So when you man up, in theory, if you can hold up in man, you're also by nature allocating less to the zone coverage box, and you can therefore send more pressure, right? So man coverage in many cases also equals blitzing or sending anything above and beyond four-man pressures. Those two in some instances are synonymous, right? And that worked. Now, we also got to study and be honest about who Jaden Daniels is. Whenever he sees man versus zone, his splits come into the equation here, okay? You're better suited if you have the personnel to play man coverage against him. Why? Because in theory, you're forcing tighter windows. You're having to be more surgical, more precise in football. It's, in theory, more difficult if you have guys that can man up. Okay? But where you really get dangerous and why the Cowboys were one of the best defenses in football whenever Micah Parsons was on the field for 3 straight years is because you can play zone coverage and really keep it in. You essentially have 2 deep safeties or 3, and you can really prevent teams from taking deep shots when you have guys like Micah Parsons who you don't have to send extra pressure to win. You can get home with 4. Even despite Micah getting double teamed at the highest rate in the league, he's still the most successful pressure player. Okay, but Maxx Crosby is in a similar tier. He's a tier below the guy, the Micahs and the, say, Myles Garretts of the world in the pass rush department. But Max is also a tier up, and there's data to verify this. And we can talk about that if y'all want to, if you don't believe me. But just trust me that the work is being done. And I'm watching the tape, and you can see it. It's posted. It's actually in the video that I posted last night before Trey Wingo and people like Adam Schefter go and say and the big guys, right? Little man Land says something last night, but the big boys, the big dogs, started barking this morning, and so now it's real, right? But go watch the tackles for loss, the TFLs in the run game, the run stops. Okay, NFL Pro has all these metrics for you, and you can see them. You can see how disruptive that Maxx Crosby is in the running game. It's just something about his game. He's not that much bigger, right? 6'5", 248, I think is what he goes. Micah's right around the same weight. But there's just something to his game, a little bit longer frame, plays with a little bit better leverage potentially. He's able to get hands on tackles and tight ends, and I believe there's something. I don't know exactly what it is. I got to study it deeper, but there's something to his frame allows him to make the first punch, and he has to do less lateral moving. Right, he doesn't have to take himself out of gaps to win. Is kind of what I'm getting at, right? Because of the lever, he can strike first and win with pop, while also being a little. He's still a freak, an elite mover, much like Micah, but Micah has slightly. He doesn't have the same length that Maxx plays with, and I think that's what makes Maxx better in the run game. But the point, regardless of why, the proof is in the pudding. And so Jerry would easily be able to say, well, we're better on early downs. We're better in the middle because we got Kenny Clark. We have an extra first round pick, and we have a very comparable pass rusher, all in the same equation. One clean swoop. Now, of course, the Raiders would have to comply because Maxx Crosby is under contractual control until 2029. So let's talk about that. What's in it for the Raiders? Why on earth, Lando, would they move off a player like this? Well, ask yourself why the Cowboys would move off of Micah Parsons. Sometimes you just have to have honest conversations with yourself. Maybe there's a fracture in the relationship behind the scenes. Not the case with Maxx. I'm just saying there's lots of different plausible reasons for why a particular player would be moved. Why, sometimes things happen, okay? But then also in the Raiders case, they're not exactly who they thought they might be with Geno Smith. As of right now, they're a 2-win football team. Currently, I think they hold the 7th overall pick in the upcoming NFL draft. But by the time it's all said and done, we're all pretty confident, or I'm pretty confident at least, I'll just speak for myself here, saying that the Raiders are going to be selecting inside the top 5. Maybe even higher. When the dust ultimately settles. When you can't even so much, like Patrick Mahomes has taken a nap halfway through the third quarter because their divisional opponent is so incompetent, you got problems. You got buy-in issues, you have preparation issues, you have a talent deficiency clearly. And that team is just a long way off, right? And so the point is that Maxx Crosby today is 28 years old. He's 3 years older than Micah was. And by the time his contract ends, when he would in theory otherwise be a tradable asset, he's much less valuable 4 years down the road in 2029 than he is today. Right? A 28-year-old player is still at the peak of his powers. But he's best served for a team, a franchise, a roster who thinks, and the Cowboys do, by the way, they have the offense. If one of your two sides of the ball, there's 3 phases of football, but if one of your two is literally so far and above, or so clearly elite, you're a win now team. And so all they have to do is, it's not, I say all they have to do, there's a lot that goes into it, but can I merely just get my worst defense in football to just climb to middle of the road? Because history tells us in a vacuum, and this is minus Kenny Clark, keep in mind. All right. So with Micah Parsons, the Cowboys are one of the best EPA per play defenses in football up here. Pressures, sacks, takeaways, points per game. With Micah Parsons right here. Without, we're seeing it. We've seen what happens. So if one person has already proven that they can elevate, and I don't even need them to elevate, I don't need Maxx to elevate me to where Micah elevated me. All I need is right here, somewhere in this range. But I can also play the run better now because I've got Kenny Clark too. And I don't have to stop there if I don't want. We can get real crazy, real crafty. We can get real Howie Roseman if we want to. But we're just talking about one today because the report, I guess I should probably mention this, the big dogs that we've referenced a couple times so far in this stream. Big man, not little man land, big man. Adam Schefter is the first one today. Let's see, Adam Schefter, Crosby, if that pulls it up. Because I know that it's a widespread concern regarding, okay, you bring Maxx Crosby in, that's a hit to your salary cap situation. That means George Pickens is automatically gone. Not so fast. Not so fast on that. And that's what, the Joneses in recent history, especially with the Micah Parsons situation, that's what they like for their fans to believe. But new media, people like myself and the countless other really, really incredible creators on behalf of Cowboys Nation or otherwise, just the NFL in general, are here to dispute that, right? In my job specifically, the sports below the surface truth for the true fan, right? To creatively convey the truth. And that creative, objective truth is that the salary cap hell, as it's commonly referred to, is largely a myth. Okay. It does not really exist unless you want it to, as the owner, you being the owner, right? You can afford to pay both. And that's what some of the confusion is. And so that's kind of why I'm here and hopefully to clear some of those things up, right? I've worked like this in the past. There's a video on my channel from about a month ago, and it was basically unpacking what the Eagles know and act upon differently than everybody else in the National Football League as of today, relative to voided years and the money that they have allocated as dead money as a result of their voided years for multiple contracts, as a result of just being willing to swipe the credit card. Or Jeffrey Lurie, for example, being willing to liquidate some of his business, some of his ownership, to have cash on hand to pay some of these top tier players in free agency or otherwise, right? And then their pockets are different than the salary cap reflection. Okay, it's not like Mulan, or is it Mulan or Pocahontas? Forget which one. My daughters are big Disney enthusiasts right now, and one of the songs came on the other day. It was, "When will my reflection show who I am inside?" What the Cowboys, or what most fans see when they look at the salary cap, it's not a synonymous, a symmetrical reflection, because of it's a loophole that teams like the Eagles and like a couple others, but teams like the Cowboys now have a chance to act upon. If they're truly serious about winning, the salary cap isn't a factor here. All right. So the first thing that I want to unpack is Pocahontas. There we go. Kelvin knows, he's about it. It is a cash on hand issue, but the cash on hand issue is a owner willingness. It has nothing to do with the salary cap, right? So make sure that y'all hear me when I say that.
Guys, listen. Okay, what?
Listen like Linda and understand that the salary cap has it is no hard restriction on your team building situation. It is simply and merely a accounting principle. That's the first thing you got to know. We got that part, okay? Then, so you get past that on whether they could actually do it. It was, would Jerry really do it because of his pride and his ego? Let me ask you this question, nation. Little man Lando here says, you tell me what you'd rather have. Micah Parsons or Maxx Crosby, Kenny Clark, and a first-round pick? Which is an easier sell to your fan base? Because the reality is, the truth of the matter is, if you can get Maxx Crosby for A1 and change, then that's your equation. That's the equation that Jerry Jones is evaluating. We're still a net positive in the form of one extra first round pick than Micah's 47 APY. But as we know, the 47 APY doesn't tell the full story. Much like Dak's 60 APY is not really 60. The Cowboys aren't paying Dak Prescott $60 million per year on their salary cap situation because of void years. We get that, right? It's an easy sell. Jerry's ego doesn't suffer. As a matter of fact, he sat there and told us what we could do with Micah's money as a result of not paying one guy. We could have 6 guys instead. Now, I'm still a proponent of, hey, can we stop just giving away our best players? Can we do anything and everything by any means necessary to keep our best guys? Sure. And maybe let's do so before we enter into these deadlines make deals situations where rock in a hard place gets you. And you have no choice but to act out of pride or desperation. If anybody has a plug, by the way, tell these people to holler at me here. All right. So why would the Cowboys do it? Well, because they're currently the number 1 offense in football. You do it because Matt Eberflus, to his core, is a bend but don't break. Keep the hat on, keep the lid on the defense, zone coverage based guy. That's who he wants to be. Now, we're going to see fluctuation. We've seen adaptation. Now, whether Shoddy made that call, whether Flus made that call, does not matter. The call was made, the adjustments happened, and the results are undeniable. The Cowboys played 50% zone coverage, 50% man, approximately. I think it was 47 was the final number, and about the same percentage of blitz packages. Those two, in some regards, are synonymous. Why? Because when you play man coverage, there's less zones to worry about because there's more zones than there are receivers. So when you man up, in theory, if you can hold up in man, you're also by nature allocating less to the zone coverage box, and you can therefore send more pressure, right? So man coverage in many cases also equals blitzing or sending anything above and beyond 4-man pressures. Those two in some instances are synonymous, right? You really get dangerous, and why the Cowboys were one of the best defenses in football whenever Micah Parsons was on the field for 3 straight years is because you can play zone coverage and really keep it in. You essentially have 2 deep safeties or 3, and you can really prevent teams from taking deep shots when you have guys like Micah Parsons who you don't have to send extra pressure to win. You can get home with 4. Even despite Micah getting double teamed at the highest rate in the league, he's still the most successful pressure player. Okay, but Maxx Crosby is in a similar tier. He's a tier below the guy, the Micahs and the, say, Myles Garrett's of the world in the pass rush department. But Max is also a tier up, and there's data to verify this. And we can talk about that if y'all want to, if you don't believe me. But just trust me that the work is being done. And I'm watching the tape, and you can see it. It's posted. It's actually in the video that I posted last night before Trey Wingo and people like Adam Schefter go and say, and the big guys, right? Little man Land says something last night, but the big boys, the big dogs, started barking this morning, and so now it's real, right? But go watch the tackles for loss, the TFLs in the run game, the run stops. Okay, NFL Pro has all these metrics for you, and you can see them. You can see how disruptive that Maxx Crosby is in the running game. It's just something about his game. He's not that much bigger, right? 6'5", 248, I think is what he goes. Micah's right around the same weight. But there's just something to his game, a little bit longer frame, plays with a little bit better leverage potentially. He's able to get hands on tackles and tight ends, and I believe there's something. I don't know exactly what it is. I got to study it deeper, but there's something to his frame allows him to make the first punch, and he has to do less lateral moving, right? He doesn't have to take himself out of gaps to win, is kind of what I'm getting at, right? Because of the lever. He can strike first and win with pop, while also being he's still a freak, an elite mover, much like Micah. But Micah has he doesn't have the same length that Maxx plays with. And I think that's what makes Maxx better in the run game. But the point, regardless of why, the proof is in the pudding. And so Jerry would easily be able to say, well, we're better on early downs. We're better in the middle because we got Kenny Clark. We have an extra first-round pick, and we have a very comparable pass rusher, all in the same equation. One clean swoop. Now, of course, the Raiders would have to comply because Maxx Crosby is under contractual control until 2029. We're still tip of the iceberg with this thing. My vision is I know where I'm going, and I know what I want to do with it. But right now, 50% of my effort is raising 3 little babies. So I'm just running my race, man, and enjoying every second of it as best as I possibly can. Sleep is definitely tertiary these days because, 2 small businesses, 2 soon to be 3 small children. Yeah, man, fast lane, but it's fun. That's for sure. What else? Do we clear up the Maxx Crosby thing? That's obviously that's why you guys came here today. I want to make sure that I answered every question that was unanswered before we get out. Any final parting Maxx Crosby questions, thoughts, or concerns? Does everybody understand the salary cap and what I mean by voided years? Voided years are a loophole for ownership and general management to basically give themselves an additional 3-year window beyond the time that the contract technically calls for that player to be in-house. It's like, for instance, Maxx Crosby's contract with the Raiders expires in 2029. They would have, in theory, or the Cowboys, in theory, for George Pickens, for whoever, they could restructure the Maxx Crosby's contract, by the way, if they wanted to. So that's another thought that we didn't even get into. But the money can always work. That's what I want y'all to understand more so than anything. You don't have to worry about all the other stuff. That's for me to worry about, and I'll creatively convey that whenever the time comes. But don't let Jerry Jones convince you that if you get Maxx Crosby, you can't also have George Pickens, because that could not be further from the truth. Wrong. That is snake oil. If that's the case, then you explain to me how Saquon Barkley is a Philadelphia Eagle. I think he's making, 15 a year? You got 230 a year guys. You got a quarterback that's making 50. You got, countless others. Lane Johnson. You got Jalen Carter, who's getting ready to command. He'll be the highest paid interior defensive tackle soon. They have 10 or 12 contracts where guys are making double-digit millions. That's like 5 more than the next highest team in the league. Maybe they have 15 by now. I don't even know. I haven't checked it in a while. But there's no guarantees that the Raiders move him. They don't have to. It's not up to the Cowboys to get this done. They got to have 2 to tango. But the difference between somebody I guess I should also mention this too. So let's just say Maxx Crosby versus Trey Hendrickson, right? Just so we understand. For me, it makes more sense for the Cowboys to consider a deal for somebody like Maxx, who is currently under contract. They have his numbers. It's right here. It's on paper for them. They can see, okay, this is how much this guy makes. Here's how it's going to affect our business decisions. They can adjust that because of voided years, right? But it's finite. It's right here. Okay, here's his APY. Here's his bonuses. Here's his incentives. Here's his the life of his contract. Here's how many more years we got. okay, we can move this money here. We can restructure this here. We can give this to George Pickens. Like they can start playing the game. If you trade for Trey Hendrickson, you got to give up draft capital, and then you got to negotiate, give up draft capital to acquire him, and then you got to negotiate and give up financial capital to keep him because he's only got one. He's on an expiring contract. His deal ends. So if you go get Trey Hendrickson this year, now granted he might be a lot cheaper because of that situation. That might make him cheaper. Like you might be only giving up, say, I don't know, a 3rd round pick or something. I don't know what it would be. But you're paying draft capital to acquire the player, and then you got to pay and deal with the negotiation to renegotiate to keep him beyond. And that's a problem for most teams. It's kind of it's an annoyance, right? But for the Cowboys in particular, who are focused on getting other guys done, their own. We know how much they value and covet their own. Oftentimes, way more than they should. But they like their guys, So it just, to me, it seems more likely that they would dance with a team like the Raiders or Maxx Crosby than they would dance with a team like the Bengals for Trey Hendrickson, because it's still one extra step that they have to take that's annoying, and that can be really difficult to come to terms with. Max's is already done. Here it is. We can all go see it right now. All you got to do is type in Spotrac, Maxx Crosby, his base salary. You can see all those numbers. $32.5 million in 2025, $30 million in 2026, $29 million in 2027, $26 in 2028, and then $27 million again in 2029. But if the Raiders, I should also say this too, if they traded him, depending on the designation, but at most, all right, let's just say it's a pre-June 1 trade, they would eat $10 million this year and only $5 million of dead money next year. So relative to their financial situation, it's next to nothing. They can absolutely move off of Maxx Crosby today if they wanted to and be just fine. It would not cap strap them. For instance, they wouldn't be eating $30 million to not have him. Okay. This year and next year, they could get it if they wanted it to, depending on the designation, pre or post June 1, they could have it be approximately $5 million of dead money, and that's it. That's basically who's a $5 million player this year for the Cowboys, right? That's not doing anything. Javonte Williams, by the way, was $3 million. So there's that. But I don't know. You just insert average veteran, like replacement level veteran salary here, and that's what we're talking about. Like say an Eric Kendricks or somebody like that. He actually played on the veterans minimum last year, which wasn't $5 million, but you get the point. Okay, and then 2027, 28, and 29, zero dead money, regardless of when they do it. So they're not mortgaging their future to not have him, and just basically it would be some people have suggested that it would be only a play for adding draft capital now. It's not the case. It would clear their books to the tune of $30 million per year. Their cap savings, if they moved off of him this year, or let's just say next year, they'd save $30 million in 2026, $29 million in 2027, $27 million in 2028, and $28 million in 2029. That's good business if you're adding first round picks, first round plus, we'll say, and also getting off of $30 million. For a team that's not ready to win. If they're honest with themselves, that sounds like something that I would do if I were a general manager, especially for a 28-year-old player. Especially for one that maybe you might think, hey, we owe this guy something. We owe it to him. Let him go get a ring somewhere. Doesn't even have to be Dallas. I'm just saying in general, it makes sense for them to move off of the Raiders, to move Maxx Crosby away from the Raiders for a variety of reasons. Draft capital, added, money spent, all because of where we are today. But then also, let's do right by the player. Let's get him out of here, man. Let him go win somewhere for a change. How about that? You know? So I've said my piece, man. I hope that you guys have enjoyed your time here today. Don't forget, if you didn't do so when you first came in here, hit the like button for me just so that we can continue to grow this platform and continue having these discussions, man. The sports below the surface truth for the true fan. And we'll continue tracking the situation. But for Trey Wingo, for Adam Schefter, and for Little Man Land to be talking about things like this, why it makes sense, there's a lot of reasons why it makes sense, not just for the Cowboys, but for both parties. One team going one way, another team hopefully going the other. Got a lot of guys on 4-year max pay windows right now for the Cowboys, right? Including the coach. Oso Digizua, 4-year extension. CeeDee Lamb, 4-year extension. Dak Prescott, 4-year extension. You'd like to think that George Pickens would be on if and when they sign George Pickens, it's going to be the same timeline. And guess who lines up with that 4-year extension? With everybody else on the Cowboys. Going all in. Maxx Crosby. All their money, their window of paying all these guys, right? That's lining up, man. And guess what happens right after that? Just in case you didn't know, you're worried about the money and deferring dead money into void years to make the money work now, to keep Maxx Crosby, CeeDee, George Pickens, Dak, Kenny, Osa, Deron Bland, Tyler Smith. I'm missing a few. You guys get it, okay? You're not mortgaging your future in 2029 either. You wouldn't have to tank or rebuild either. You know why? Because it's what the Eagles know. That's the video that we did the other day, a month and a half ago or so, whatever it was. What the Eagles know and what they're acting on differently than anybody else. It's time for Jerry Jones. Y'all clip this and send it to tag everybody that you know with a voice. Tag them right now.
Guys,
right now. I need your help.
Listen. Okay, what?
When that new TV money starts to hit, just call it 2030, which is right around the time frame that all these Maxx Crosby like extensions that the Cowboys currently have on their books would all come to an end. But then all that dead money that's deferred into the future beyond 2029, 2030, to make the books work, to make the money fit into their salary cap situation, that 30% salary cap balloon year over year, when it's never happened, it's never jumped over 15% to date, when it all of a sudden jumps double the amount that it ever has before because of that new TV money, Jerry Jones could always afford it. But now more than ever, he absolutely can. Don't let them tell you otherwise. Clip that. And tag all the big dogs. Because little man Land can't do it by himself. All right? I love you guys. Remember that prayer changes things, and the war is already won.